In this video I'm going to talk about flying lesson costs, how to manage your finances so that you fly more often. Learning to fly and obtaining a private pilot's license isn't cheap, but you can avoid unnecessary expense with a little forward planning. Flying lesson costs will vary, but in the long run the cheaper hourly rate may not be your best option. In this video I discuss the cost of obtaining a fixed-wing pilot's license for flying light aircraft in the UK. But the same principles apply wherever you learn to fly. In the UK there are two types available: PPL, Private Pilot's License, and LAPL, Light Aircraft Pilot's License. The LAPL gives the pilot fewer privileges than the PPL, so the requirements are less stringent. As a very rough guide, the cost of a PPL will start at £8,000 and the LAPL will start at £6,000. Costs for other types of aircraft like microlights or helicopters, for example, will vary proportionally according to the aircraft type. Let's review the real costs involved in learning to fly. As well as the lessons themselves, you'll need to add several other smaller sums. First, the flying lessons, CAA minimums plus some contingency. Then, student pilot kit, books, maps, navigational computer, etc. Headset. The school may lend them, but for several reasons it's best to have your own. Travel to and from the flight training club or school. Other training aids, for example DVDs, apps and software. Ground school exam fees. License application fee. Now let's look at minimum hours and actual hours logged. If you visit the CAA's website and read the requirements of a PPLA, you will see that you need a minimum of 45 hours of training. This should include a minimum of 25 hours of dual instruction and 10 hours of solo flight. I'll leave it to the CAA or your flying instructor to explain the finer details. The key word here though is minimum. Some people do manage to complete all the requirements at or close to that figure. The $64 million question though is, will you be able to do so too? You will need to factor in a contingency into your budget for extra hours above the minimum requirements. Now let's take a brief look at the importance of continuity in your training. You will save yourself a lot of money if your budget is organised and available at the start of your training. If you run out of money, the continuity is broken, and when you return to training you'll have to revise and repeat previous exercises. So plan your finances in such a way that you won't run out of money at a critical stage. Trust me, there's nothing more frustrating. As you empty your bank account or reach your credit limit, you realise that you're about to shelve your logbook just when things are getting interesting. Flying schools are subject to the same economic forces as any other business, so your flying lesson costs may increase over time due to inflation. Now let's look at choosing the right flight training school. Flight training costs vary around the UK, and the same is true of most countries. You will pay more per hour at a club with a shiny fleet of new aircraft and an immaculate clubhouse with all the facilities than you will at a small grass strip with a porter cabin as an office. So let's look at a few things to consider when choosing a flight school. Proximity. How long will it take for you to get there? The type of runway. If it's a grass airfield, will it be out of use in very wet weather? Facilities. Do the buildings look well maintained? The aircraft fleet. How many aircraft are there and how old are they? Then there's the instructors. Talk to a few and ask to be shown around. You might want to consider the school's reputation. Google the school name and read what others are saying about it. The school that's closest to you might not be the ideal choice when all things are considered. On the other hand, you don't want to travel for an hour or more to reach your flight school at short notice if a weather window opens. Speaking of weather, what about learning to fly abroad? The attractive prospect of learning to fly wherever there are near constant blue skies and uncluttered airspace lures some to book flight training holidays in Florida, South Africa, Australia, or perhaps just across the Channel. The attractions are obvious, and the additional costs of flights, accommodation and subsistence may seem a price worth paying, particularly if the hourly rate is favourable. However, there is another cost that is sometimes overlooked. If you cover most of the syllabus in areas where the weather is often predictably pleasant, and the airspace is wide open and free of restrictions, how will you cope when you return to the UK? For example, will you have the necessary skills and, just as importantly, confidence to make a decision when the weather is borderline? Will your navigation skills keep you out of controlled airspace and danger areas? Some students who return from flight training trips abroad find themselves asking for additional training with a UK flying instructor in order to bring their skills up to the standard required in Britain's comparatively congested airspace. Perhaps your flying holiday would be better spent hour building after you've obtained your PPL in the UK. On the other hand, learning to fly in a quiet airstrip in predictable weather might give you the time to learn how to fly the aircraft well and without other distractions. Now let's talk briefly about changing instructors. You are going to be spending thousands of pounds, so it's worth remembering that you are the customer. You may be in awe of the instructors, and particularly the CFI, but they depend on students like you for their livelihood. If you have any complaints or concerns, don't let them fester. If you feel it's appropriate, go and see the CFI and ask for a quiet chat. Assuming he or she is professionally minded, then you'll be met with an open mind. For example, you may find that you don't get along with your instructor. This is unusual, but it does occasionally happen. We are all different personality types, and just occasionally we don't gel with the person sitting next to us for hours on end. So remembering that it's your money you're spending, go and address this with the CFI, and he or she should offer an alternative. This is likely to save you money because you will learn faster with an instructor who is on your wavelength. To conclude, a short warning. Like any other commercial establishment running on tight margins and reliant upon a strong economy, flight schools can go out of business if mismanaged or if they run out of students. For this reason, it's never a good idea to hand over large amounts of cash up front. If they tempt you with a discount for a large deposit, then perhaps a few £100 might be worth the risk, but I would suggest not handing over £1,000 or more. Perhaps things have improved greatly since I was a student pilot, so feel free to ignore all my advice. Just remember that you want to go from 0 hours to pilot in command, so managing your finances is your first lesson in being in control. I hope this video has given you some useful tips. You can read more about flying and aviation on my blog at benlovegrove.com, or just subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please share this video with others who might be interested, and leave comments, feedback, or requests for more videos like this. I would love to hear from you. Wishing you blue skies and calm winds.